Poor girl asks young billionaire to go trick-or-treating with her. What he does is unbelievable. Halloween night had that characteristic autumn smell, dry leaves mixed with the sugary scent of the candy filling the children's bags. The streets were filled with ghosts, princesses, superheroes, and monsters. Laughter echoed across the sidewalks as groups of parents escorted their kids from door to door. Inside the corner diner, downtown, business was slow. Tuesday was always like this, sluggish, dragging on, with few customers beyond the regulars who showed up more out of habit than hunger. Rachel wiped the counter for the third time that hour, moving the cloth in automatic motions. Her brown hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her mustard-yellow uniform apron had a ketchup stain she'd given up on removing. She looked over to the booth, where Josie sat in a chair that was far too tall for her. The girl was 5, with blonde hair that fell in soft waves to her shoulders and clear blue eyes that sparkled even under the establishment's dim lighting. Josie swung her little legs, which didn't reach the floor, her face glued to the glass window. Outside, a little girl dressed as a fairy ran past, holding her magic wand with one hand and a plastic pumpkin full of candy with the other. Right behind her, a boy dressed as a dinosaur roared at his sister, who laughed loudly. Their parents followed close behind, taking photos with their phones. Josie watched everything with silent attention. Rachel felt a pang in her chest. She knew that look. It was the same one she saw in the mirror when she was her daughter's age, the look of someone on the outside looking in, of someone who doesn't belong. "Honey, do you want me to get you a milkshake?" Rachel offered, trying to distract her. Josie slowly turned her head. "No, Mom, it's okay." But it wasn't. Rachel knew it. The girl turned back to the window. A group of kids passed by, shouting "trick or treat," and disappeared around the corner. Josie let out a small, almost inaudible sigh. Rachel bit her lip. She had explained 3 times that week that they couldn't afford a costume this year. The rent was late, the electricity bill too, and payday was still 2 days away. Josie had nodded her little head and said she understood, but Rachel knew she didn't truly understand. How could a 5-year-old understand why she couldn't have what all the other kids had? "Josie, we'll go home soon, okay? I'll finish my shift, and we can watch a movie." "Okay, Mum." The answer came automatically, too obediently. That hurt more than any tantrum. Rachel walked back behind the counter. The manager had left early, so she was alone until the end of her shift. 40 more minutes, that's all. She looked at the clock on the wall. 8:20. When she turned back to check on Josie, the chair was empty. Rachel's heart pounded. "Josie?" Nothing. "Josie!" She ran around the counter, looked under the tables, and went to the restroom. Empty. The front door was ajar, swaying slightly in the breeze. "No! No! No! No!" Rachel ran out into the street, panic rising in her throat. She looked left, then right. Costumed children everywhere, but none of them were Josie. None of them had that blonde hair and that plastic grocery bag that... Wait, Rachel saw about 50 yards away. A small figure walking alone down the sidewalk, blonde hair bouncing, a small bag in her hand. But before she could reach her, Josie turned a corner and disappeared. Rachel started running. Josie didn't really know what she was doing. She just knew she had to try. She had seen on TV how it worked. Kids knocked on doors, said the magic words, and got candy. You didn't need a costume for that, right? Maybe if she was polite, someone would give her candy too. She clutched the handle of the plastic bag. It wasn't a real pumpkin bucket, but it would do. It even had a drawing of a black cat that she had made herself with a marker. But when she looked around, she realized all the kids were accompanied. They had dads, moms, older siblings. No one was alone, and she didn't know which door to knock on. Josie stopped at the corner, looking at the lit-up houses. Some had pumpkins on the porch, others had fake spiderwebs hanging, but they all seemed far away. And suddenly she felt very small. That's when she heard the sound of a car stopping. Josie turned. It was a nice car, black, shiny. The door opened, and a man got out. He was tall, wearing a dark suit and a navy blue tie. His hair was slicked back, and he held a leather briefcase. He locked the car with a click and started walking toward a brownstone building. Josie took a deep breath. Her heart was beating fast. She wasn't sure it was a good idea, but there was no one else. She approached slowly. "Mister?" The man stopped mid-stride. He turned, surprised. His eyes were brown and looked tired. He glanced around, searching for an adult. But there was only Josie, alone, holding that plastic bag. "Can you be my dad today?" The words came out in a thin stream of air, almost a whisper. Jack froze completely. He blinked, as if unsure he'd heard correctly. "What?" Josie pressed the bag to her chest. Her blue eyes were fixed on him, full of a fragile courage. "I want to trick or treat, but I'm scared." She took a step forward. "My mum is working. She can't leave now. And I wanted to get candy like the other kids." Josie looked at the street, where groups of costumed children were running from house to house, laughing, holding their parents' hands. "Everyone has someone," she continued very softly. I just wanted to try, just once." Her voice cracked. Jack remained standing, processing. This little blonde girl, dressed in simple clothes, was asking him to pretend to be her dad, for one night, just so she wouldn't be alone. He had just come from a meeting that lasted 6 hours. He was tired, frustrated, and had a headache. He planned to get home, take a shower, and maybe order Chinese takeout. But now there was a little blonde girl with bright eyes, looking at him as if he were the only person in the world who could help. Jack looked at the bag in her hand, at the street full of costumed kids, at her little face, so serious, so hopeful, and something inside him gave way. "Okay." He said it before he even understood why. "All right." Josie's eyes lit up. "Really? Really? But you need a costume, don't you?" Josie lowered her head. "I know, but I don't have any money." Jack took a deep breath. He looked at his watch. He looked at the girl. He made a decision that made no logical sense. "Come with me." 10 minutes later, they were leaving a convenience store. Jack had bought a witch costume, the only one they still had in the right size. It was simple. A black dress with purple details, a pointed hat, and a wand. Nothing very elaborate, but Josie looked at it as if it were made of gold. "Can I put it on now?" she asked, her eyes shining. "Sure." She went into the store's restroom and came out 2 minutes later, clumsy in the dress but smiling from ear to ear. The hat was crooked, the wand was upside down, but she was radiant. Jack found himself smiling too, just a little. "What about you?" Josie asked, looking at him. "What about me?" "You're not in a costume." Jack raised an eyebrow. "I'm wearing a suit, doesn't that count?" "No." Josie crossed her little arms, serious. "Everyone who trick-or-treats has to be in a costume. It's the rule." Jack sighed. He looked around. There was a shelf with last-minute accessories, bunny ears, cheap masks, headbands, and a black top hat. He picked up the top hat, put it on his head, and looked at Josie. "How about now?" Josie laughed, a high-pitched, spontaneous laugh, full of joy. "You look like a magician." "Great, then I'm a magician." He paid for the top hat too, along with a plastic pumpkin bucket for Josie. When they left the store, the girl was holding the bucket with both hands, as if it were the most precious thing in the world. "Where to now?" Jack asked. Josie pointed to a house on the corner, all decorated with pumpkins and orange lights. "That one." And off they went. The first door felt strange. Josie rang the doorbell and waited, nervous. Jack stood a step behind, hands in his pockets, feeling completely ridiculous in that top hat. A middle-aged woman opened the door, smiling. She looked at Josie, then at Jack, and her smile became a little confused. "Trick or treat," Josie said, in a timid voice. The woman picked up a bowl full of candy. "Oh, what a cute little witch. And you are—" "A magician," Jack replied, dryly. The woman chuckled. "I see. Here you go, sweetheart." She filled Josie's pumpkin bucket with chocolate. "Thank you," Josie said, waving as they walked down the steps. When they were back on the sidewalk, she looked at the bucket, marveling. It worked. Jack gave a slight smile. Of course, it worked. The second door was easier, the third too. By the fourth, Josie was confident, speaking louder, smiling more. Jack just stayed there, quiet, simply accompanying her. But something in him began to change. He realized he was paying attention, to the way Josie thanked each person, to the way she shared her candy with him, always offering the best piece, to the way she looked at him, as if he were someone important. No one had looked at Jack like that in years. At the 6th house, a man opened the door dressed as a vampire. He made a scary face and roared. Josie let out a little shriek and hid behind Jack, giggling. "Hey, hey, take it easy," Jack said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "He's fake." The man laughed and gave her a handful of candy. "Sorry, little one. Happy Halloween." When they walked away, Josie held Jack's hand. It was a natural, unthinking gesture. And Jack, without thinking either, held it back. They kept walking. The streets were full of lights, laughter, and music. Jack, who had spent the entire day locked in conference rooms talking about numbers and deadlines, was now out on the street, wearing a ridiculous top hat and escorting a girl he barely knew. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about work. "Did you know you can laugh and work?" Josie asked suddenly, looking up at him with those curious blue eyes. Jack stopped walking. He looked at her, surprised. "What?" "My mum always says work is serious, but you're working right now, aren't you? Being a magician. And you're laughing." Jack was silent for a moment. Then he smiled, a genuine smile, not the ones he used in meetings. "You know what, Josie? I think I had forgotten that." "Forgotten what?" "That you can laugh," Josie smiled back. "Then it's a good thing you remembered." They continued knocking on more doors. Josie's pumpkin bucket got heavier and heavier. Jack relaxed, even starting to play along, doing impromptu magic tricks that made Josie belly laugh. At one house, he pulled a quarter from behind her ear, and Josie was so impressed that she told everyone at the next 3 doors. Time flew by. Too fast. At one of the houses, a lady gave them not just candy, but also homemade cookies. Josie thanked her 3 times. As they walked down the steps, she looked at Jack with shining eyes. "This is so much fun," she said, swinging the full bucket. "So much." Jack looked at her, this little girl who had appeared out of nowhere, and asked him to be her dad for a night. And he felt something strange in his chest, something warm, something he hadn't felt in a long time. "Me too," he replied sincerely. Josie smiled big and open and took his hand again, and together they continued down the illuminated street, past paper ghosts and smiling pumpkins, as the Halloween night lived on around them. After the 10th house, Jack noticed that Josie's steps were slower. She was still smiling, still thanking each person, but something was different. The bucket seemed heavier. She yawned twice in a row. "Josie," Jack said, stopping on the sidewalk, "are you tired?" "No." The answer was quick. Jack crouched down to her level. "We've got plenty of candy now." Josie looked at the full bucket. Then she looked at Jack. "It's okay," she said softly. That's when Jack heard a noise coming from her stomach. A low rumble. Josie put her hand over her stomach, embarrassed. "Are you hungry?" She hesitated, bit her lip, nodded yes. "When was the last time you ate?" "At lunch." Jack looked at his watch. It was after 9. "Is there anywhere close we can grab something?" "My mom works nearby." "At the corner diner." Jack knew the place. "Let's go then, your mum must be worried." Jack held out his hand. Josie took it, holding tight, and the two started walking. When Jack opened the diner door, the bell jingled. A woman in a yellow apron was behind the counter, holding a phone. Her face was pale, her eyes red. When she saw Josie, the phone dropped. "Josie!" Josie let go of Jack's hand and ran. "Mommy!" Rachel knelt and pulled her daughter into a desperate hug. She held Josie as if she would never let go. "Where were you? I looked everywhere. I called the police." "Sorry, Mommy. I just wanted to trick or treat." Rachel held her daughter's face, checking if she was okay. Her eyes scanned every inch, the dress, the crooked hat, the full pumpkin bucket. Then she looked up. Jack was standing near the door, still wearing the top hat. Rachel's expression changed. It hardened. She stood up, placing Josie behind her. "Who are you?" Jack took off the top hat. "My name is Jack." "Mommy, he helped me get candy," Josie interrupted. Look," she held up the bucket. "We got a lot." Rachel didn't take her eyes off Jack. You went out alone with a man you don't know. But he's nice, Mom. He bought the costume. Josie, Rachel's voice was firm, go sit over there. But, now. Josie went to a chair and sat down, holding the bucket. Rachel took a step forward. There was a strength about her that had nothing to do with size. I appreciate you bringing my daughter back, but I need you to explain exactly what happened. Jack nodded. She approached me on the street, asked if I could be her dad today to help her trick or treat. Rachel closed her eyes for a second. She told me you were working and couldn't leave. That she wanted to get candy like the other kids. I looked at her and I couldn't say no. You should have brought her straight here. I know, you're right, but she was alone, scared. I thought it was better than leaving her on the street. Rachel took a deep breath. When she looked at Josie, smiling, holding that bucket, wearing a costume she couldn't afford to buy, her anger mixed with guilt. I bought the costume at a store, and the bucket. Nothing else. We just knocked on a few doors and came back. Rachel looked at him. He didn't seem nervous. He was direct, calm, and respectful. Josie? Rachel called. Did he hurt you? Did he touch you in any way that made you uncomfortable? No, Mom, he was super nice. We just got candy. And he did magic. Rachel went to her daughter. She knelt, holding her little hands. Are you sure you're okay? I am, Mom. I promise. Rachel hugged Josie again. When she stood up, her eyes were moist. She looked back at Jack. This time, her look was different. Still cautious, but less defensive. Thank you, she said softly, for watching out for her and for bringing her back. Jack nodded. You don't need to thank me. There was a silence. Jack looked at Josie. She still had her hand on her stomach. She's hungry, hasn't eaten since lunch. Rachel closed her eyes. I know. I was going to give her something when my shift ended. Jack hesitated. Can I buy her something, a burger? Rachel opened her mouth to refuse, but when she looked at Josie, she saw the way she looked at Jack, full of trust. That man had done something she couldn't do that night. He had given her daughter joy. All right, Rachel said. I thank you. Jack approached the counter. Can you make a kid's a hamburger with fries? I can. Rachel went into the kitchen. While preparing the food, she looked through the small window. Jack had sat down next to Josie. He wasn't on his phone. He was there, talking. Josie was showing him the candy, telling him which house gave what. Jack listened attentively, asking questions, smiling. Rachel watched the way he tilted his head when Josie spoke, the way he paid attention, the way Josie laughed, free and easy. He didn't look like a man with ulterior motives. He looked kind, present. Rachel finished the burger and brought it to the table with fries and juice. Here you go, sweetheart. Josie took a big bite. Thanks, Mum. Jack stood up. How much do I owe? You don't have to. I insist. Rachel accepted. Jack paid and left a tip. When he turned to leave, Josie dropped the burger and jumped off the chair. Are you leaving? Jack crouched down. I am, but you're safe now. With your mum. Will we see you again? Jack looked at Rachel, asking for permission. Rachel just watched. Maybe, Jack replied, smiling. If your mum lets us. Josie threw herself into a hug. Jack returned it, carefully embracing the little girl. Thank you for being my dad today, Josie whispered. Jack felt his chest tighten. Thank you for letting me. He stood up, nodded at Rachel, and left. Rachel watched through the window as Jack got into his car and drove away. Josie went back to her chair, eating her fries. He's nice, right, Mum? Rachel didn't answer right away, but when she finally spoke, her voice was soft. Yes, he seems to be. And for the first time that night, Rachel allowed herself to breathe. 3 days after Halloween, Rachel was wiping down the diner tables when the front doorbell chimed. She looked up, ready to greet the customer, and froze. It was Jack. He wasn't wearing a suit this time. He had on a simple blue shirt and jeans. He looked more casual, more relaxed. And in his hands, he held a brightly wrapped package. Rachel straightened her back, gripping the cloth tighter than necessary. Hi, Jack said, stopping near the entrance. Hi. There was a brief silence. Jack looked around, as if searching for someone. Is Josie here? Rachel hesitated. Part of her wanted to say no, that her daughter was busy, that he didn't need to come back. But the truth was, Josie had talked about him every day since that night. She had drawn him with the top hat. She had told the story to the neighbors. She had asked 3 times if he would return. "Yes," Rachel finally said. "She's in the back, drawing." Jack nodded. "I brought something for her, if you don't mind, of course." Rachel looked at the package. "What is it?" "A book." Rachel crossed her arms, not hostilely, but cautiously. "Why?" Jack shrugged. "Because I wanted to." The answer was too simple to be a lie. Rachel took a deep breath. "All right, but I'm watching you." Jack smiled slightly. "I wouldn't expect anything less." Rachel went to the back and returned with Josie. The girl had a crayon in her hand and a purple smudge on her nose. When she saw Jack, her eyes widened. "Jack!" She dropped the crayon and ran to him, stopping right in front with a huge smile. "You came back?" "I came back," Jack said, crouching down to her level. "Dad, I brought something for you." He held out the package. Josie took it with both hands, looking at it as if it were a treasure. "Can I open it?" "Of course." Josie tore the paper open in a hurry, and when she saw what it was, she let out a little shriek of delight. It was an illustrated book. The cover had a colorful dragon and a blonde-haired girl holding a wooden sword. The title read, "The Princess and the Friendly Dragon." "It's beautiful," Josie said, running her fingers over the cover. "Did you buy it for me?" "I did. I thought you'd like it." Josie hugged the book to her chest. "I love it." Rachel watched from the kitchen entrance, her arms still crossed. She wasn't sure what to feel. Gratitude, suspicion, confusion. "Can you read it to me?" Josie asked, looking up at Jack with those hopeful blue eyes. Jack looked at Rachel, silently asking for permission. Rachel hesitated, but then she saw the way Josie looked at him, and she couldn't say no. "All right," she said, "but just for a little while. I have work to do." Josie pulled Jack by the hand to one of the booths. He sat down, and she climbed onto the seat next to him, placing the book in front of him. "You can start." Jack opened the book to the first page. He cleared his throat and began to read. "Once upon a time, in a land far away, lived a princess named Luna." His voice was calm, clear. But when he reached the part with the dragon, he changed his tone. It became deep, gravelly, making a funny voice that made Josie laugh. "Who dares enter my territory?" Jack read in a dragon voice. Josie held her stomach, laughing. "He's funny," Jack continued, using a different voice for each character. The princess had a sweet and firm voice. The dragon was dramatic and exaggerated. The knight was pompous and a little silly. Josie was completely absorbed. She leaned forward, her eyes glued to the illustrations, laughing at all the right moments. Rachel had returned to the counter, pretending to be busy organizing glasses, but her eyes kept going back to the table where Jack and Josie were. She watched the way Jack held the book, leaning it so Josie could see the pictures, the way he made dramatic pauses, waiting for her reaction, the way he smiled when Josie laughed. It wasn't forced. It wasn't a performance. It was genuine. Rachel had seen many men in her life. She had seen those who pretended interest just to impress, those who did the minimum and expected recognition, those who were physically there but truly absent. Jack was none of those. He was present, completely present. Jack continued in the narrator's voice. "Princess Luna and Flint the dragon became the best of friends, and together they protected the kingdom from all dangers." He closed the book. Josie clapped her hands. "Again! Again!" Jack laughed. "Again!" "But you just heard it." "But I liked it." "How about we read it again another day?" Josie pouted, but nodded. "Okay." Jack looked at his watch. "Actually, I need to go. I have a meeting soon." Josie held the book against her chest. "You can take the book back if you want." Jack shook his head. "It's yours. For you to read whenever you want." "Really? Really?" Josie threw herself into a hug so fast that Jack almost fell off the seat. He laughed and returned it, carefully embracing the little girl. "Thank you, Jack." "You're welcome, Josie." When she pulled away, Jack stood up and went to the counter. Rachel was there, pretending to fiddle with the register. "She liked it," Rachel said, without looking at him. "She did," Jack confirmed. There was a silence. It wasn't uncomfortable, but there was something unsaid lingering between them. "Why did you come back?" Rachel finally asked, looking at him. Jack didn't look away. "Because I wanted to." "But why? You don't get anything out of this." Jack thought for a moment. "Maybe I do." Rachel frowned. "What?" "A chance to make a difference." Rachel didn't know what to say. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Jack took a step toward the door, but stopped. "Look, I know you don't know me, and I understand why you're cautious. If I had a daughter, I'd be the same." He looked at Josie, who was flipping through the book again, smiling. "But I don't have ulterior motives. I like her. She's an incredible kid. And if you let me, I'd like to come back every now and then, just to see how she's doing." Rachel gripped the edge of the counter. "Why? Why do you care?" Jack was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was low, honest. "Because no one cared about me when I was her age." The sentence dropped into the air like a stone in water. Rachel looked at him, really looked, and she saw something she hadn't seen before. It wasn't pity, it wasn't charity, it was empathy. "All right," Rachel said, slowly. "You can come back, but with one condition." "What is it?" "You don't disappear. If you're going to be a part of her life, you have to stay. Because if you vanish, she'll feel it. And I won't let anyone hurt my daughter." Jack nodded, serious. "I understand, and I promise. I won't disappear." Rachel held his gaze for another second, then nodded. "All right," Jack smiled slightly. "Thank you." He waved at Josie, who was so focused on the book that she barely noticed. When she finally looked up, she waved back, smiling. Jack left the diner. Rachel stood still, watching through the window as he got into his car and drove away. She didn't know what to think. She didn't know if she was doing the right thing. But when she looked at Josie, smiling, happy, holding that book as if it were the most precious possession in the world, she felt something strange. Hope. Maybe. Just maybe. Not everyone leaves. Maybe. Just maybe. There are still good people in the world. And maybe, just maybe, Jack was one of them. Jack came back the following week. This time, he arrived in the late afternoon, when the sun still streamed through the diner windows and painted everything gold. Rachel was serving an elderly couple when she saw him walk in. She nodded her head, a silent greeting, and he returned it. Josie was in her usual corner, sitting in a booth, drawing with crayons scattered across the table. When she heard the door chime, she lifted her head and her face lit up. "Jack!" She jumped out of the seat and ran to him, stopping right in front with a huge smile. "You came back again." "I did," Jack said, smiling. "I promised I would, didn't I?" Josie nodded excitedly. "I was drawing." "Oh yeah. Can I see?" "You can." "Come!" She pulled Jack by the hand to the table. There were several drawings spread out, some flowers, a cat, a house with a chimney, but there was one that was separate from the others, in a corner, as if she had kept it with special care. Josie picked up the paper and held it out to Jack, suddenly shy. "I made this for you." Jack took the drawing carefully, as if it were something precious. It was simple, made with crayons and childlike strokes, but what it showed made something tighten in his chest. It was two figures holding hands, one tall, in a suit and top hat, one small in a purple dress and pointed hat. The sun was shining above them, yellow and round. And at the top, written in crooked, uneven letters, was, "Me and you, my new friend." Jack stared at the drawing for a long moment. He didn't say anything. He just looked, lightly running his finger over the colored lines. Josie started to get nervous, shifting from one foot to the other. Did you like it?" Jack blinked, as if coming back to reality. When he looked at her, there was something different in his eyes. Something moist, vulnerable. "I love it," he said, his voice coming out lower than intended. "It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever been given." Josie smiled, her eyes shining. Really? Really? I'm going to keep it forever." She threw herself into a quick, spontaneous hug. Jack returned it, carefully embracing the little girl, still holding the drawing with one hand as if afraid to crumple it. When Josie pulled away, she pulled Jack to sit down. "Do you want to draw with me?" Sure. They sat down together. Josie pushed some crayons toward him and grabbed a blank sheet, already planning the next project. Let's draw a house, she announced seriously. A house? Yeah, with a garden, and flowers, and a big dog. Jack smiled. All right, let's do it. They started drawing side by side. Josie gave detailed instructions, telling him where everything should go, which color to use, how to draw the flower petals. And Jack obeyed, asking questions every now and then just to see her explain with all that adorable seriousness. The dog has to be brown, Josie said, pushing the brown crayon toward him. Why brown? Because I like brown dogs. They're cute. Makes sense. Rachel had finished serving the couple and was behind the counter, organizing napkins. But her eyes kept returning to the table where Jack and Josie were. She saw the way Jack leaned in to listen to Josie. The way he held the crayon, clumsy, clearly out of practice, but trying anyway. The way he smiled when Josie laughed, as if that laughter were the most important thing in the world. And once again, Rachel felt that strange tightness in her chest. She didn't quite understand what she was feeling. It wasn't anger, it wasn't fear, it wasn't suspicion, not anymore. It was something else, something she couldn't name, something that scared her a little because it was too new. After about 20 minutes, Josie announced that she needed to go to the restroom. She jumped off the seat and ran off, leaving Jack alone at the table. He sat looking at the drawing Josie had given him, running his finger over the crooked letters, over the two figures holding hands. There was a small smile on his face, but also something deeper, something that looked like nostalgia mixed with gratitude. Rachel seized the moment. She grabbed the pot of fresh coffee she had just brewed and went over to the table. Coffee, she offered. Jack looked up, surprised. Oh, thank you. She placed the cup in front of him and, after hesitating for a second, pulled up a chair and sat on the other side of the table. There was a brief silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. She likes you a lot, Rachel said, looking at the drawing on the table. Jack smiled slightly, sincerely. I like her a lot too. Rachel was quiet for a moment, gathering courage. Then she took a deep breath and asked, Why do you keep coming back? Jack took a sip of his coffee before answering, as if choosing his words carefully. Because I want to. But why? You have a life, a job. You don't need to keep coming here every week. Jack looked at her straight into her eyes. Maybe I do need to. Rachel frowned. What do you mean? Jack rested his elbows on the table, holding the cup with both hands. There was something thoughtful about him, something weary. I spend all day in meetings, he began, talking about numbers, deadlines, targets, negotiations that lead to nothing but more money. It's all empty, mechanical. I do it because it's what I know how to do, but it stopped making sense a long time ago. He looked toward where Josie had gone. But when I come here, I feel like I'm doing something that really matters, even if it's just drawing. Or reading a book or making funny voices. Rachel didn't say anything. She just listened, seeing him in a way she never had before. Josie is special, Jack continued, his voice soft. She's genuine. She doesn't want anything from me except my presence. She doesn't care if I closed a deal or if I have money. She just wants me to be there. And it's been a long time since someone looked at me like that. Rachel felt a knot in her throat. She understood, at that moment, that Jack wasn't there out of pity. He wasn't there because he wanted to feel good about himself or because he needed some moral validation. He was there because he needed to be, just as Josie needed him. Just as Rachel, if she were honest with herself, was starting to need him too. There was a long silence. Rachel fiddled with the edge of her apron, thoughtful. Then Jack asked carefully, "And Josie's dad?" The question came softly, without pressure, without judgment. But Rachel felt its weight all the same. She looked at the cup of coffee in Jack's hand. She took a deep breath, preparing herself. "He was my boyfriend," she began, her voice calm, controlled. "We dated for 2 years. I thought he was the right guy, you know, that we were going to build a life together, get married, have kids, all those things you imagine when you love someone." She paused, looking down at the table. "Until I found out he was cheating on me. With a co-worker of his, it had been going on for months." Jack said nothing. He just listened, respectful. I found out by chance, Rachel continued, her voice becoming a little harsher. I saw a message on his phone. When I confronted him, he barely tried to deny it. He said it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, all those empty excuses people give. She gave a bitter smile. I broke up with him right then. Didn't want to hear anything else. I packed my things and left. Jack closed his eyes for a second, as if feeling her pain. Weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. Rachel was quiet for a moment, remembering that day. The positive test, the shock, the fear. I thought about telling him, as she said. Part of me thought it was the right thing to do. But then I remembered who he was, what he had done, how he lied to me for months without blinking. And I didn't want my daughter to grow up near someone like that. She looked at the table, at Josie's drawings scattered around, colorful and full of life. I decided to raise my daughter alone. It was hard. It still is. Some days I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. Some days I cry in the bathroom because I'm exhausted, but I don't regret it. Not for a second. Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he said with genuine gentleness, "You're strong." Rachel gave a sad smile. I didn't have a choice. You did, Jack said firmly. You could have gone back to him. You could have accepted crumbs just so you wouldn't be alone. You could have let him be a part of Josie's life, even knowing who he is. But you didn't accept any of that. That is strength. That is courage. Rachel felt her eyes sting. She blinked, trying to hold back the tears. There was a comfortable silence between them, full of mutual understanding. You seem like a good person, Rachel said, finally looking at him truthfully. I just didn't think someone like you would care about someone like us. Jack tilted his head, curious. What do you mean, someone like me? Rachel shrugged, uncomfortable. You have money, you have a nice car, you wear a suit, you probably live in a good neighborhood, you have a structured life. She looked down. And us, we're just me and Josie, living off my diner salary. Living in a small apartment with a leaky ceiling. I just don't understand why you would be here, why you would keep coming back. Jack was quiet for a long moment, looking at her with an intensity that made Rachel feel seen in a way she wasn't used to. When he spoke, his voice was low but firm, honest. Maybe I'm truly caring for the first time. Rachel looked up, surprised. Jack continued, the words coming out slowly, thoughtfully. I have money, yes. I have a car, a big house, a well-paying job, but that doesn't make me any better than you. In fact, I think you have much more than I do. How so? You have Josie. You have purpose. You wake up every day knowing exactly why you're alive, knowing who you're working for, knowing what matters. He looked at the coffee cup, stirring it distractedly. I wake up every day and go to an office. I close deals. I make money. I climb the corporate ladder. But at the end of the day, I come back to an empty house. There's no one waiting for me. There's no one who cares if I made it home or not. There's no one who asks how my day was. Rachel felt her chest tighten. When I met Josie, Jack said, looking at her with those truthful brown eyes, she saw me, truly saw me. She didn't see me as a businessman or as someone with money or as someone useful. She saw me as a person, as a human being. And she asked for my help. He gave a small, sad smile. It had been a long time since someone asked me for real help, not to close a deal, or to solve a work problem, or to make a connection. Just help. Human. Real. Rachel didn't say anything. She just looked at him, seeing him completely differently now. Not as a rich stranger who appeared out of nowhere, but as a man, alone. Lost. Seeking connection. So yes, Jack continued, his voice firm. I care, because you two reminded me of something I had forgotten. What? That you can still be human, that there's still kindness, that you can still feel something other than exhaustion. The words hung in the air, heavy and true. Rachel felt a knot in her throat, bigger now, almost impossible to swallow. She wanted to say something, but she didn't know what. She had no words to express what she was feeling. That's when Josie came running back from the restroom, jumping into the chair next to Jack with all the energy in the world. "Did you finish the drawing?" Jack blinked, as if returning to reality. "Ah, not yet." "Then let's finish. The dog needs ears." She grabbed a brown crayon and continued drawing, completely focused, tongue sticking out as she worked. Jack looked at Rachel. She looked back. And for the first time, there was something different between them. It wasn't total trust, it wasn't certainty, but it was the beginning of something. Something fragile but real. Rachel slowly stood up. "I'll go get more coffee." Jack nodded. "Thank you." She went to the counter, but paused halfway, looking back. Jack was leaning over the table, helping Josie color the dog's ears. She was laughing, showing him where to color, correcting him when he went outside the line. And he obeyed, with infinite patience, with total attention. Rachel felt that tightness in her chest again. She didn't understand everything she felt. She couldn't name all the emotions that came in waves. But there was something there, something growing, hope. And maybe, just maybe, the feeling that she wasn't alone, that Josie wasn't alone, and that Jack, in some strange and unexpected way, had become a part of their lives, not out of obligation, not out of pity, but because he chose to. And that choice, Rachel was beginning to realize, meant everything. She walked back to the counter, grabbed the coffee pot and filled a cup for herself. Then, looking out the window at the street outside where the sun was beginning to set, Rachel took a sip. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe things could be different, that not everyone leaves, that there are still good people in the world, and that Jack, against all odds, was one of them. One Saturday morning, Jack showed up at the diner earlier than usual. Rachel was finishing her shift when she saw him walk in. This time, he was even more casual. A grey t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. There was something different about him, too. He seemed lighter, less tired. "Good morning," he said, smiling. "Good morning," Rachel replied, wiping her hands on her apron. Josie was sitting at a table, eating toast with jelly. When she saw Jack, she jumped off the seat and ran to him. "Jack, you came." "I did," he said, crouching down to her height, "and I have a question to ask." Josie tilted her head, curious. "What?" Jack looked at Rachel, then back at Josie. "Do you two want to go to the park today?" Josie's eyes widened. "To the park?" "Yeah, I thought we could spend the afternoon there, take a ball, have a picnic. What do you think?" "Yes, yes, yes," Josie jumped, clapping her hands. Jack smiled and looked at Rachel. "And you?" Rachel hesitated. She hadn't been to the park in... how long? Years, maybe. There was always something to do. An extra shift, a bill to pay. "I don't know," she began. "I have to..." "Mommy, please," Josie interrupted, running to her and holding her hand. "Please, we never go to the park." Rachel looked at her daughter, then she looked at Jack, who waited patiently, without pressure. And then she realized, when was the last time she had done something just to do it, something that wasn't work or obligation? "All right," she finally said, "let's go." Josie shrieked with joy and hugged her mother tightly. They met at the park an hour later. Jack had brought a picnic basket and a colorful ball. Rachel had dressed Josie in a light yellow dress and had swapped her diner uniform for a simple white blouse and jeans. The park was crowded. Families scattered across the grass, children running, dogs barking. The sun was shining brightly, but there was a gentle breeze that made everything pleasant. "Where do we start?" Jack asked. Josie pointed to an open space on the grass. "Let's play ball," Jack smiled. "Then let's." They went to the lawn. Jack took the ball out of the bag and threw it to Josie. She caught it with both hands and laughed. "Kick it back," Jack said. Josie kicked it with all her might. The ball rolled crookedly, far from Jack, but he ran after it as if it were the most perfect kick in the world. Rachel sat on the grass, watching. There was something surreal about that scene. Jack, a businessman always so serious, running after a ball with a 5-year-old, laughing out loud, not caring who was watching. "Mommy, come play with us," Josie shouted. Rachel shook her head. "I'm good here." "Please," Rachel sighed. But she couldn't resist the smile on her daughter's face. She stood up and walked over to them. Jack threw the ball to her. Rachel caught it in a little awkwardly and kicked it back. The ball went straight to Josie, who shrieked with delight. They played for almost half an hour, laughing, running, tripping. At some point, Rachel forgot to worry. She forgot the bills, the job, everything. She was just there in the moment, playing ball with her daughter and Jack. When Josie announced she was tired, they went to a big tree and sat in the shade. Jack opened the picnic basket. There were sandwiches, fruit, juice, and cookies, all simple, but well chosen. "Did you prepare all this?" Rachel asked, impressed. Jack shrugged. "I bought it from the bakery. Nothing too elaborate." "Even so, thank you." They ate in comfortable silence. Josie told stories between bites, talking about school, about the drawings she had made, about a little bird she had seen at the window. Jack listened to everything attentively. Rachel did too. And slowly, she realized she wasn't tense. She wasn't scared. She was relaxed. When Josie finished eating, she lay down on the grass, looking at the clouds. "That one looks like a bunny," she said, pointing. Jack lay down next to her. "Where?" "There. See? The ears." Rachel watched the two of them, a small smile on her face. Then, without thinking much, she lay down too. They stayed there, the three of them looking up at the sky, identifying shapes in the clouds. "That one looks like a dragon," Jack said. "No, it's a dinosaur," Josie corrected. "You're right, definitely a dinosaur." Rachel laughed. It was a light, genuine laugh. And when she realized she was laughing, she felt something strange in her chest, something good. After a while, Josie stood up and announced she was going to look for flowers. She ran off but stayed close, crouching to look at daisies in the grass. Jack and Rachel stayed lying down in silence. "Thank you for today," Rachel said, looking at the sky. "You don't need to thank me." "I do. I haven't done this in a long time." "What?" "Just being, without thinking about what comes next, without worrying about everything." Jack turned his head to look at her. "You deserve to rest," Rachel gave a sad smile. "Sometimes I forget that." There was a silence. Then Rachel said, softly, "It's been years since I felt this safe." Jack said nothing. He just stayed there, listening. Rachel continued, her voice soft. "Since Josie's dad left, since I decided to do this alone, I always felt like I was carrying everything on my shoulders, that if I stopped, everything would fall apart." She looked at the clouds, blinking slowly. "But today I didn't feel that. I felt like everything was fine, that we were fine." Jack was quiet for a moment. Then he said, with genuine sincerity, "You're not alone." Rachel turned her head to look at him. Her eyes were moist. "Sometimes it feels like I am." "I know," Jack said gently. "But you're not. Not anymore." Rachel felt a knot in her throat. She wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Jack didn't press her. He just stayed there, present, whole. Not trying to impress, not trying to fix anything, just being. And somehow that was enough. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the park. Josie found a group of children and asked to play with them. Rachel and Jack sat on the grass, watching from a distance. "She makes friends easily," Jack commented. "She always has," Rachel said, smiling. "She's not afraid to walk right up to people." "She gets that from you," Rachel laughed. "No, I'm the opposite. I've always been more reserved." "Then she gets it from her dad." Rachel was quiet. Then she said, "I don't know. I think she's just herself." Jack nodded. "That's a good thing." They were silent, watching Josie run with the other children, laughing loudly. "Have you ever thought about having children?" Rachel asked. Suddenly, Jack seemed surprised by the question. "I have, but it never happened." "Why?" He shrugged. "I never found the right person, and work always came first. When I realized it, too much time had passed." Rachel looked at him. "You still can." Jack smiled slightly. "Maybe." There was a comfortable silence. "You're good with her," Rachel said. "With Josie." "She makes it easy." "No. You're genuinely good. You have patience, presence. That's rare." Jack looked at her. "Thank you." Rachel nodded, looking back at Josie. They stayed there until the sun began to set. When Josie came back, tired and happy, they packed up and walked to the parking lot. When it was time to say goodbye, Josie hugged Jack tightly. "Thank you, Jack. It was the best day." Jack smiled, embracing her. "For me too." Rachel held out her hand, but Jack pulled her into a quick, respectful hug. She was surprised, but returned it. "Thank you," she said softly. "You're welcome." When Jack got into his car and drove away, Rachel stood there, holding Josie's hand, watching the car disappear. "Did you like it, Mommy?" Josie asked. Rachel looked at her daughter. Then she smiled, a true smile, full of warmth. "I did, sweetheart. I liked it very much." And it was true. For the first time in years, Rachel felt light. She felt that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to carry everything alone, and that it was okay to let someone in. It was okay to trust again. The following Tuesday, Jack showed up at the diner at his usual time. But there was something different about him. He seemed hesitant, as if carrying news he didn't want to deliver. Josie was drawing at her usual table. When she saw Jack, she ran to him with her usual smile. "Jack, look what I drew today." She showed him a drawing of a house with 3 people in front. Jack recognized the figures immediately. Him, Rachel, and Josie. "It's beautiful," he said, sincerely. Rachel was behind the counter, drying glasses. She looked at Jack and noticed the tension in his face. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Jack hesitated. "Can I talk to you, just for a minute?" Rachel felt something tighten in her chest. She nodded and asked her co-worker to keep an eye on Josie. They went to a booth in the corner. Jack sat down, fiddling with his hands. Rachel sat across from him, waiting. "I have to travel," he finally said. Rachel remained motionless. "Travel? For work? There's an important negotiation in another city. I tried to postpone it, but I couldn't." "For how long? A week? Maybe a little longer." Rachel nodded slowly. Her face became neutral, closed off. "Okay," she said, simply. Jack leaned forward. "It's only a few days, but I thought it was right to tell you." "You don't need to tell me anything," Rachel said, her voice controlled. "You have your life, your job, we understand." "Rachel, seriously, Jack, it's fine." But it wasn't. Jack could see it. In the way she avoided his gaze, in the way she crossed her arms, in the way she shut down like a slamming door. "I will come back," he said, firmly. Rachel gave a small, emotionless smile. "Of course." "Rachel, I'm serious. I will—" "You don't have to promise anything," she interrupted, her voice hardening. "Dice, we always knew you would leave eventually." Jack felt like he had been punched. "I'm not leaving, it's just a trip." Rachel stood up. "I need to get back to work." "Rachel, Josie will miss you. You can say goodbye to her before you go." She walked back to the counter without looking back. Jack sat there, feeling the weight of what had just happened. He knew what he had seen. Fear, not anger, fear. Fear of being abandoned again. He stood up and went to Josie. He crouched beside her. "Josie, I have to travel for a few days." Josie stopped drawing. "Travel?" "Yeah, for work. But I'll be back soon, okay?" Her blue eyes looked sad. "You promise?" "I promise." Josie hugged him tightly. "I'm going to miss you." Jack held her, squeezing his eyes shut. "I'm going to miss you too." When she pulled away, he looked at Rachel. She was facing away, pretending to be busy. Jack left the diner with a heavy heart. The days passed slowly. Rachel tried to act as if nothing had changed. She worked, took care of Josie, and paid the bills. But there was an emptiness she couldn't ignore. Josie asked about Jack every day. "When is he coming back, Mommy?" "Soon, sweetheart." "But when?" "Before long." But Rachel wasn't sure. Part of her, the part that had been hurt before, whispered that he wouldn't come back, that he had realized it was too complicated, that he had found something better to do. On the 5th day, Rachel was wiping the counter when the door chime sounded. She looked up, expecting to see a customer. It was Jack. Rachel froze. He was standing there by the entrance, with a bag in his hand and a tired smile on his face. "Hi," he said. Rachel couldn't speak. She just stared at him, incredulous. Josie was drawing and hadn't seen him yet. Rachel walked toward Jack, her steps slow. "You came back," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "I did. I finished everything faster than I expected." Rachel looked at him, truly looked. He seemed tired, as if he had driven all night to get there. "I brought a few things," Jack said, lifting the bag. Before Rachel could respond, Josie looked up and saw him. "Jack!" She dropped the crayon and ran, jumping into his arms. Jack caught her, laughing, spinning her around in the air. "You came back. You came back." "I did, little one. I promised, didn't I?" Josie held his face with both hands. "I knew you would come back." Jack looked at Rachel over Josie's head. She was standing there, arms crossed, but there were tears in her eyes. Jack put Josie down. "Look, I brought something for you." He opened the bag and pulled out a new illustrated book and a silver headband with little stars. Josie's eyes widened. "For me? For you?" She grabbed the headband and put it on her head immediately. "Do I look like a princess?" "The most beautiful princess I've ever seen." Josie hugged him again, tightly. Then she ran to show Rachel's co-worker. Jack was left alone with Rachel. He took something else out of the bag. It was a simple white mug with a phrase written on it, "Home is where you are." He held it out to her. Rachel looked at the mug, then at him. Her hands trembled as she took it. "I saw it in a store," Jack said, his voice low, "and I thought of you both." Rachel held the mug with both hands, looking at the phrase. The tears she had been holding back began to fall. "I didn't go a day without thinking about you both," Jack said, taking a step forward. "Not one. I woke up and thought about what Josie might be doing. If she was drawing, if she was happy." He paused. "And I thought about you. If you were okay, if you were tired, if you thought I wasn't coming back." Rachel wiped her tears with the back of her hand, still holding the mug. "I did," she admitted, her voice broken. "I thought you had realized we were too complicated, that you had better things to do." Jack shook his head. "There's nothing better than being here. With you." Rachel let out a choked laugh. "You are everything," Jack interrupted firmly. "To me, you are everything." Rachel covered her mouth with her hand, trying to stop the crying, but she couldn't. Jack approached and carefully pulled her into a hug. Rachel let herself be held. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to be vulnerable, to be weak, to be taken care of. "I came back," Jack whispered, "and I'll keep coming back, always." Rachel nodded against his chest, holding the mug between them. She believed him. For the first time, she truly believed. When they pulled apart, Rachel wiped her face and gave a small, embarrassed smile. "Sorry, You don't need to apologize." Josie ran back, still wearing the headband. "Jack, are you going to read the book to me?" Jack smiled. "Of course." They sat down together at the table. Josie snuggled up next to Jack as he opened the book. Rachel stood behind the counter, watching the two of them. She held the mug against her chest, feeling its warmth, not from the drink, but from the meaning. Home is where you are. And for the first time, Rachel understood. Home wasn't a place, it was a person, it was people, and Jack had become a part of that. A part of them, a part of home. The weeks went by and Jack became a part of the routine. He showed up at the diner 3, sometimes 4 times a week, always in the late afternoon, when business was slower. He brought coffee from a coffee shop that Rachel liked. He helped fix things that were broken, a wobbly chair, the dripping sink faucet, the flickering restroom light. Rachel tried to refuse at first. She said she didn't need it, that she could handle it alone. But Jack insisted with a calm ease that disarmed any resistance. "Let me help," he would say, simply. "I want to." And he helped. Not because he expected something in return, not because he wanted to impress, but because he genuinely wanted to be there, to be a part of it. Josie stayed by his side whenever she could, holding the tools, asking questions, learning. Jack explained everything patiently, speaking slowly, letting her try too. "Like this?" Josie would ask, holding the screwdriver crookedly. "Almost. Turn it a little more to the right. Like this." "Perfect." Rachel watched from a distance. pretending to be busy with other things, but her eyes always returned to them, to the way Jack listened to Josie, to the way he never lost his patience, to the way he was always present, always whole, and slowly, without realizing it, Rachel let him in, not just in the diner, not just in Josie's life, but in hers too. On a late Friday afternoon, after Rachel closed the diner, they sat at one of the booths. Josie was lying on the bench seat, asleep with her head in Rachel's lap. The day had been long, full of games and energy, and she had passed out as soon as the sun began to set. Jack was sitting across the table, drinking cold coffee. He looked out at the street through the window, thoughtful. Rachel watched him in silence. There was something different about him that night, something heavy. "Is everything okay?" she asked, softly, so as not to wake Josie. Jack looked at her. He hesitated. Then he nodded. "It is just thinking." "About what?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he took a deep breath as if gathering courage. "About my life," he finally said. "About what it was like before I met you." Rachel said nothing. She just waited. Jack continued, his voice low, honest. "I was living on autopilot. Woke up, went to work, closed deals, went home. Every day the same thing. I had money, success, everything I thought mattered." He looked at the coffee cup. "But I had no one to share it with, no reason to go home." Rachel felt her chest tighten. "I achieved everything," Jack said, looking at her, "except someone to share it with." There was a long silence. Rachel stroked Josie's blonde hair, processing his words. "Since I met you," Jack continued, his voice becoming firmer, "everything has changed. I started waking up thinking about coming here. I started caring about things I'd never cared about before. I started feeling like my life had purpose." He paused, looking directly at Rachel. "I want to start a family," he said, slowly, each word heavy with meaning. "And I want it to be with you." Rachel froze. Her heart pounded. Her hands stopped stroking Josie's hair. She looked at Jack, eyes wide, not knowing what to say. Jack didn't look away. "I know it's early. I know you're scared. And I understand. But I needed to say it. I needed you to know that I'm not here by chance. I'm not here just passing time." He leaned forward. "I'm here because I want to stay forever, if you'll let me." Rachel opened her mouth, but nothing came out. 1,000 thoughts rushed through her head all at once. Fear, hope, doubt, desire. She looked at Josie, sleeping peacefully. Then she looked back at Jack. "I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice trembling. "You don't have to say anything right now," Jack said gently. "I just wanted you to know. I wanted to be honest." Rachel felt her eyes sting. She blinked, trying to hold back the tears. Jack slowly stood up. "I should go. Let you two rest." He walked to the door but stopped before leaving. He looked back. "Think about what I said. No pressure. I'll keep coming, no matter what you decide. But if you want to, if you feel like you can trust me, I'll be here." He left. Rachel sat there, alone with Josie sleeping in her lap, his words echoing in her mind. "I want to start a family, and I want it to be with you." She looked out the window, watching his car disappear around the corner. And she realized she hadn't said no. She hadn't pulled away. She had left the door open. 2 weeks later, on a normal Tuesday afternoon, the diner was almost empty. Rachel was wiping the counter while Josie drew at a table. Jack was sitting next to her, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper. There was a tranquility to the moment, a domesticity that Rachel had never experienced before. Josie was focused on her drawing, tongue sticking out as she colored carefully. She had spread crayons all over the table, organized by shade as Jack had taught her. Suddenly, she stopped, looked at the drawing, frowned. "Daddy, can you help me here?" The world stopped. Jack froze, the newspaper in his hand, his eyes fixed on the paper. Rachel froze behind the counter, the cloth dropping from her hand. Josie didn't notice. She kept looking at the drawing, waiting. "Daddy?" she repeated, looking at Jack. "I can't get this part right." Jack blinked. His throat tightened. He looked at Rachel, who was paralyzed, her eyes wide. Tears were starting to well up. Jack looked back at Josie, that little blonde girl with blue eyes who had appeared in his life on a Halloween night and changed everything. He slowly folded the newspaper, placed it on the table, and moved closer to her. "Of course," he said, his voice husky, full of emotion. "I'm here." Josie smiled and showed him the drawing. "I want to draw the sky, but I don't know what color to use." Jack sat down next to her, looking at the paper. His hands trembled slightly. "How about we mix blue with a little bit of purple? It looks pretty." "Good idea." Josie picked up the 2 crayons and started coloring. Jack stayed right there, watching, one hand resting on the back of her seat. Rachel had turned her back, pretending to be busy with something behind the counter, but her shoulders were shaking. She covered her mouth with her hand, trying to hold back the crying. It wasn't about replacing anyone. It never was. Josie's biological father was never there, never wanted to be, never cared. But Jack was. Jack chose to be. And Josie, with that childlike purity that sees the world as it should be, had recognized that she had given a name to what Jack already was in practice. Dad. Rachel silently wiped her tears, trying to compose herself, but it was impossible. The crying came softly, silently, mixed with something she never expected to feel: relief, gratitude, happiness. She looked back discreetly. Jack was leaning over the drawing, pointing something out to Josie. She was laughing, nodding, happy, and Rachel realized that this was real, that it wasn't a dream, it wasn't temporary. It was theirs. It was real. It was family. When Josie finished the drawing, she held it up in the air, proud. "Done." "Look how it turned out," Jack smiled. "It's perfect." Josie jumped off the seat and ran to Rachel. Mom, look." Rachel turned around, having already wiped her face. She knelt down, getting to Josie's height. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." "Jack, help me." Rachel looked at Jack, who was still sitting at the table, watching the 2 of them. Their eyes met. And in that look, there was everything: gratitude, recognition, acceptance. Rachel gave a small smile, her eyes still moist. Jack returned it, with that gentle smile she had learned to recognize. Josie hugged her mother. "Can I hang the drawing in our room?" "Of course you can." Josie ran back to the table to get the crayons. Rachel stood up and walked over to Jack. She stopped in front of him, arms crossed, not defensively but thoughtfully. "She called you Dad," Rachel said softly. Jack nodded. "I know. And you answered." "I answered." Rachel looked at him, truly looked. "Why?" Jack was quiet for a moment. Then he said, with an honesty that cut right to her heart, "Because that's what I want to be." Rachel felt the tears return. She blinked, trying to hold them back. "Are you sure?" she asked, vulnerable. "Because if you're not, if you change your mind later, it will hurt much more." Jack stood up. He stood facing her, close but respectful. "I am sure," he said firmly. "I've never been so sure of anything in my life." Rachel covered her face with her hands, her shoulders trembling. Jack didn't touch her. He just stood there, present, waiting. When Rachel finally lowered her hands, she looked at him with red eyes, vulnerable but also open. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know. I'm scared to believe, to truly let you in, and for you to leave." Jack took a step forward. "I'm not leaving." "You don't know that." "I do, because I choose to stay, every day, and I will keep choosing to." Rachel let out a shaky laugh. "How can you be so sure?" Jack smiled slightly. Because you 2 are the first thing that's made sense in my life in years. I'm not going to throw that away, never." Rachel looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay," she said, her voice low. "All right." "All right," Jack repeated, needing confirmation. Rachel gave a small smile, tears still in her eyes. "All right, I want to try." "For real?" Jack felt something explode in his chest. Relief, joy, gratitude. He took a step forward and carefully, pulled Rachel into a hug. She let herself be held, melting against his chest, feeling the warmth, the solidity, the presence. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe. To believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be afraid. That maybe, just maybe, Jack would stay. And that maybe, just maybe, they could be a real family. Josie came running back, interrupting the moment. "What are you doing?" Rachel pulled away, laughing and wiping her tears. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just talking." Josie looked at the two of them, suspicious. Then she shrugged and took Jack's hand. "Shall we draw something else?" Jack looked at Rachel. She nodded, smiling. "Let's," he said, letting Josie pull him back to the table. Rachel stood there, watching the two of them. Her heart was full in a way she had never felt before, full of fear, yes, but also full of hope. And for the first time in a long time, the hope was bigger. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Josie brought it home all excited, waving the paper in the air as she walked into the diner. Mom, look!" Rachel was serving a customer, but paused when she saw her daughter's excitement. "What is it, sweetheart?" "My teacher sent a note. There's going to be a presentation at school." Rachel took the paper. It was a simple invitation, handwritten by the teacher. It invited parents and guardians to a special presentation on Friday. The children had prepared drawings about family. Rachel felt something tighten in her chest. She had gone to some of these presentations before, always alone, always seeing other complete families while it was just her and Josie. "You're going, right, Mum?" Josie asked, her blue eyes shining. "Of course I am, sweetheart." Josie hesitated. Then she asked softly, "And Jack?" Rachel looked at her daughter. "Do you want him to go?" Josie nodded vigorously. "I do. Can he go?" Rachel took a deep breath. "I'll ask him. Okay." Josie jumped for joy. When Jack showed up that night, Rachel showed him the invitation. "So Josie wants you to go," she said, trying to sound casual. Jack read the paper. Then he looked at Rachel. "And you? Me? Do you want me to go?" Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded, slowly. "I do." Jack smiled. "Then I'll go." On Friday, Rachel dressed Josie in her favorite dress, light blue with white flowers. She tied her blonde hair in a ponytail and put on a matching ribbon. Josie wouldn't stop fidgeting. "Is Jack there yet? He's not going to be late, is he?" "No, sweetheart. He promised he would be there." When they arrived at the school, Jack was already waiting by the entrance. He was wearing dress pants and a simple blue shirt. He looked nervous. Josie ran to him. "You came." Jack picked her up. "Of course I came. Wouldn't miss it for the world." Rachel approached. They looked at each other, and Jack held out his hand. Rachel took it, and the three of them walked in together. The classroom was crowded, fathers, mothers, grandparents, all sitting on chairs too small for adults. There were drawings hanging on the walls, colorful and full of life. Rachel and Jack sat in the back. Josie went to the front with the other children, all excited. The teacher, a middle-aged woman with round glasses, welcomed everyone. "Today the children will present drawings about their families," she explained. "For each one will show and tell a little about the people who are important to them." The children began to present one by one. There were drawings of fathers, mothers, siblings, grandparents, dogs. Each child spoke proudly about their family. Rachel felt her heart clench. She looked at Jack, who was tense beside her. Then it was Josie's turn. She walked to the front of the room, holding her drawing with both hands. Rachel recognized it immediately. It was the one Josie had made weeks ago. 3 figures holding hands, with a house in the background and a bright yellow sun in the sky. Josie turned the drawing to face the class. "This is my family," she said, her voice clear and proud. She pointed to the first figure, the woman with brown hair. "This is my mum. She works hard and always takes care of me." Then she pointed to the small figure in the middle. "This is me." There was a pause. Josie looked at the third figure, the tall man in the suit. She looked at the audience, searching. Her eyes found Jack, and then she smiled. "This is my daddy." Rachel felt the world stop. She looked at Jack. He was motionless, his eyes fixed on Josie, his throat visibly tight. The teacher smiled. "What a beautiful family, Josie. Would you like to tell us anything else?" Josie nodded. "My daddy is nice. He reads stories to me and makes funny voices. And he taught me how to draw flowers." She looked directly at Jack. "And he always comes back." Jack blinked, fighting back tears. Rachel felt her own throat tighten. Her hands trembled in her lap, and then, without thinking, without planning, she reached out her hand sideways and held Jack's hand. Jack looked at her, surprised. Rachel said nothing. She just held his hand, intertwining their fingers. It was the first time she demonstrated, without words, what she felt, that she accepted, that she trusted, that she wanted this as much as he did. Jack squeezed her hand back, firm and sure. Josie finished the presentation and returned to her seat, all smiles. Other children continued presenting, but Rachel barely paid attention. She was focused on Jack's hand in hers, on the warmth, on the solidity, on the certainty. When the presentation ended, parents were invited to view the drawings up close. Rachel and Jack stood up, still holding hands. Josie ran to them. "Did you like it?" Rachel knelt down, letting go of Jack's hand to hug her daughter. "I loved it, sweetheart. It was perfect." Josie looked at Jack. "And you?" Jack knelt too, getting to her height. "It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Josie hugged them both at the same time, squeezing hard. When they pulled apart, the teacher approached. "So you must be the father," she said, extending her hand to Jack. Jack hesitated for a fraction of a second, then he shook her hand. "I am," he said, his voice firm. The teacher smiled. "Josie talks about you a lot. It's good to finally meet you." Rachel watched everything, her heart full. When the teacher walked away, Jack looked at Rachel, as if seeking confirmation that everything was okay. Rachel gave a small, sincere smile and took his hand again, this time in front of everyone. They left the school together, the three of them holding hands, Josie in the middle, skipping, happy. "Can we get ice cream?" she asked. Rachel looked at Jack. He looked back, smiling. "We can," Rachel said. Josie cheered, pulling them both forward, and as they walked down the sidewalk with the sun still shining in the sky, Rachel realized something. She wasn't afraid, not anymore. For the first time in years, she felt complete, not because she needed someone to complete her, but because she had chosen to let someone in, and that someone had chosen to stay. They stopped at an ice cream parlor. Josie ordered strawberry, Rachel ordered vanilla, Jack ordered chocolate. They sat at an outdoor table, eating slowly, talking about small things. And in that simple, ordinary, everyday moment, Rachel felt something she had never felt before. Peace. She looked at Josie, messy with ice cream, laughing at something Jack had said. Then she looked at Jack, who was wiping Josie's face with a napkin, patient and attentive, and she realized that this was exactly what she had always wanted. Not a fairy tale, not a perfect life, but a family. Real, imperfect, true, and she had it now. She did. And she would do everything not to lose it. 4 months later, Rachel was standing at the door of the empty apartment, looking around. The walls had marks where the pictures had hung. The floor had scratches from furniture that was no longer there. Everything had been packed, loaded, and taken away. That place had been theirs for so long. Every corner held a memory. Josie learning to walk, the sleepless nights when she was a baby, the simple dinners at the small kitchen table. But now it was empty. And for the first time, Rachel didn't feel sadness. She felt relief. Jack appeared at the door, sweating, with a box in his hands. "This is the last one." "The moving truck already left." Rachel nodded, taking one last look around. "Are you okay?" Jack asked, placing the box on the floor and approaching her. "I am," Rachel said, turning to him. "It's strange, but I'm fine." Jack took her hand. "We can come back if you want. It doesn't have to be now." Rachel shook her head. "No, I want to go." "I'm ready." They walked out together, locking the door for the last time. Jack's house was in a quiet neighborhood, with trees lining the sidewalks and children playing in the streets. It wasn't a mansion. It was a simple, two-story house with a small front yard and a wooden porch that creaked when they stepped on it. When the car stopped, Josie jumped out, running to the front door. "This is going to be our home," she shouted, excited, spinning with her arms open. Jack laughed, getting the keys. "It is." They went inside. The living room was cozy, with a large and soft fabric sofa and a brick fireplace. There was space for everything. For their things, for Josie's drawings, for the memories they were still going to create. Rachel looked around, taking a deep breath. It smelled like fresh paint and wood. Jack had painted some rooms before they moved in, preparing everything carefully. "Josie's room is upstairs," Jack said, pointing to the staircase. "I painted it yellow, like you asked." Josie ran up the stairs, her feet thumping on the wooden steps. Rachel and Jack followed, more slowly. When Josie opened the bedroom door, she let out a little shriek of delight. The walls were light yellow, soft and warm. There was a new bed with floral sheets, a bookshelf already holding some titles Jack had bought, and a low table for drawing with organized jars full of crayons. "It's perfect," Josie said, spinning in the middle of the room, her blonde hair flying. "It's the prettiest room in the world." Rachel felt her eyes sting. Jack had done this all by himself. He had chosen every single thing with what Josie would like in mind. "Do you really like it?" Jack asked, crouching next to Josie. "I love it. I love everything." She threw herself into his arms. Jack returned the hug, closing his eyes, holding this little girl who had changed everything. The following hours were a rush. Unpacking boxes, organizing clothes, assembling furniture. Josie helped in her own way, carrying small things and giving firm opinions on where everything should go. "The pink pillow goes on the sofa, not the chair," she instructed, seriously. Jack obeyed and smiling. When night fell, the house was still messy, but it already felt like a home. It already smelled like life, laughter and belonging. They ate pizza sitting on the living room floor because the table hadn't been assembled yet. Josie laughed loudly, telling stories about school, excited about everything, happy in a way that made Rachel's heart overflow. After dinner, Rachel helped Josie get ready for bed. Mom," Josie said, as she put on her pajamas, "can I hang up my drawing here?" She pointed to the empty wall next to the bed. Rachel looked at the drawing Josie held carefully. It was the one she had made months ago, the three of them holding hands, with a house in the background and red hearts floating in the blue sky. "Of course, and you can, sweetheart." Jack appeared at the door with tape and scissors. "Can I help?" Josie nodded, excited. They taped the drawing to the wall, carefully, adjusting it until it was at the perfect height. When they finished, Josie took a step back, admiring her work. "Now it does," she said, satisfied. "And now it really feels like ours." Rachel and Jack stood side by side, looking at the drawing. There was something powerful in that simple image, three people, together, holding hands, a family drawn with love by small hands. Josie suddenly turned and hugged them both at the same time, her little arms trying to reach both of them, squeezing with all her might. "Now we're a real family," she said, her voice muffled against them. Rachel felt the tears fall without asking permission. She looked at Jack over Josie's head. His eyes were also moist, shining under the soft light of the room. They didn't say anything. They didn't need to. They didn't say, "I love you." Those words were still difficult, still trapped by old fears and scars that took time to heal. But they said everything with gestures, in the way Jack held both of them, as if he would never let go. In the way Rachel leaned her head on his shoulder, finally allowing herself to be vulnerable, to be cared for. In the way Josie held them both, confident, sure that they would always be there. When Josie finally fell asleep, exhausted from the long, emotional day, Rachel and Jack went down to the living room. They sat on the sofa, side by side, tired but profoundly satisfied. "Thank you," Rachel said, breaking the comfortable silence. Jack looked at her. "For what?" "For everything, for accepting us, for doing this, for this room, for staying." Jack shook his head. "Thank you. You completely changed my life." Rachel gave a small, sincere smile. We changed each other's lives. They were silent, looking at the boxes still stacked in the corner, at the organized chaos that was the beginning of their life together. "It's going to work," Rachel said, more to herself than to him. Jack took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "It is." And Rachel believed him. She truly believed. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't alone. She had Josie. She had Jack. She had a family. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't perfect. There would be tough days, silly arguments, unexpected challenges. But it was theirs. It was real. It was true. And that was all that mattered. Rachel leaned her head on Jack's shoulder. He put his arm around her, pulling her closer. And there, in that simple, cozy house and full of boxes and promises yet to be fulfilled, they stayed. Quiet. Together. Complete. A family. Finally. For real. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like, because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.